I'm going to start off with asking you about this art exhibit. Tell me about the exhibit that's at the Art Gallery of Hamilton. How did that come about?
Well, you got this from the internet, no?
I did. There's a small bit, yeah. But how did they find out about you? How did they discover you? How is it that you have an exhibit at the Art Gallery?
How is it that I have an exhibit?
Yeah.
That finally somebody from the Art Gallery of Hamilton discovered me.
How?
It's a very simple thing. I went to an opening of a friend of mine's work there last year in the fall, and she introduced me to this curator, and she asked me what do I do, because my friend introduced me that Ora is an artist too, so it's a big, in that you can include a lot of people. And then she asked me, what do I do? And I told her I'm a sculptor, and I, carve stone and this and that. And I asked her, are you interested to come and see my work? And she said, yes, very much so. And then she came, which, usually people like her, they promise it, and the next day they forget and they don't come, but she came. And I think she liked my work so much from the first moment she set eyes on it, that she, in herself, she decided. But she told me, I didn't ask her about a show or anything, but then before she left, she said, well, it does not depend only on her who is getting a show there, So she has to bring somebody who is super above of her, like the director of the Art Gallery of Hamilton or somebody else. And I was surprised. Is this not why you wanted me to come? It was on my mind that I wanted to have a show, It was and it was not, because during all these years that I live in Hamilton, and I had exhibitions, not in the Art Gallery of Hamilton, but I had at the McMaster Medical Center when they used to have a nice small gallery there, in the 80s. I had twice. I had a show at Beckett Gallery, a one-man show also in the 80s. And I showed in Toronto, and I showed in New York some works, and here and there, but I never tried to push myself. I'm not the kind of person who is very good to promoting oneself, So I just thought, well, if somebody once discovers me, good. If not, too bad. What can I do, And so it was quite a surprise after she left, because she said she's going to bring some people from the gallery, and she did not show up. And I thought myself, here is another one who promises, and But after 2 weeks, she called me up and she said that the gallery decided to make me a show. In 2008, it was at that time more than a year, distance, but I was so surprised, I said, but you said you have to bring other people. No, we don't have to bring anybody. No, nobody has to come. They had slides from me, and she saw my work and what she told them about it, and that's enough. So, good enough. So then, a year is a long time, and so now we are getting closer, it's getting more exciting. And this came, I did not need this now, believe me, I didn't need it any time, but this was not now. So.
I'm just going to move your microphone a little closer to you. Can I move it onto your shirt instead of your sweater? Just right here.
The sound is not good, huh?
Sound is good. Sound is good. It's good. It's going to be better now. Tell me, how many of your pieces are in the show?
It will be about 25 something, 24, 25.
Can you tell me a bit about the pieces?
About the pieces?
Yeah.
I can't tell you about the pieces because they are so varied, so many different things. You have to come and see it. I hope you will come.
Absolutely. I'm going to write about it in the newspaper, not just I come, but everybody comes. Everybody in the Jewish community should come.
Everybody who is interested in sculptures, you know, in art.
Didn't you do the hands for the Yom HaShoah commemoration every year? Don't they use a sculpture of yours? You did some hands?
And no. Where is it?
You know when they have the Yom HaShoah every year? The Yom HaShoah?
No, I don't do that things.
But didn't you sculpt hands that are candle holders?
I do sculpt hands, but that's not that. It's not that. No, no. I know what you mean. They put out there at the memorial service always somebody's heads and this and that. No, no.
No, not the heads, the
Not
hands.
that, not that, not that.
So tell me a bit about your personal history. When did you come to Hamilton?
In 75, in the summer, we came to Canada with my husband at the end of 74, December the 15th to Montreal.
From where?
From Israel. We lived in Israel 26 years, from 49.
What brought you to Hamilton?
Depend?
Why Hamilton? Why did you choose?
Because my husband got a job as a Hebrew and English Hebrew teacher at Beth Jacob at that time.
Really?
Look, my husband was a poet, writer, translator, linguist, and he did not get the attention ever because he was even much more, he was very modest, very withdrawn, very quiet human being. He was a thinker, you know. Now, what happened because of our life, it was nothing was normal about it, you know. It was normal when I was young.
Where were you born?
In Hungary, beside Budapest. That was normal. But how old was I when the Second World War broke out? I think the Second World War broke out on 39, yeah? I was born in 24, so I was 15? 15, yeah? Well, we had as far as I remember, we had a good life at that time. You know. My parents went through the First World War. My father was in the army. As a 17-year-old, he was taken, you know, in the First World War. 4 years he served in the... And they began their life after the war, the First World War, from nothing, because everything was lost. And I, as a child, I don't remember that I ever had, they were very poor, I know that, in the beginning, when I used to have one sister only. But I don't remember that. Well, the times I remember, we already had, it was okay. My father worked day and night, my mother worked, helped him. So I don't know that, I mean, we were not wealthy. Definitely not in Canadian standards or North American standards, but we were okay. And then, you know, in Hungary also, like in almost every European country, anti-Semitism was very, most of the time, you know, you did not feel it so much, but it was always there. Because the large section of the population, like in Hungary, unfortunately, were anti-Semitic. The only thing I experienced when I was a child, when I used to go to Jewish elementary school, which was about half an hour walking distance from our home, that there was a Catholic school on the way, and the children waited for us with stones. They knew when we come out from school, you know, things like that then. But other than that, you know, we had a sheltered life. We had a large family there. My brother's brother was a doctor, and another sister had a grocery store. My father had textile, menswear, and things like that. And I only really, when one is 15 years old, one's head is full of other things than thinking about war. And I think that me and my sister, we were younger actually than our age, because the way they raised us, Orthodox Jewish home, girls should not know so much about life, this and that and that. So we were really very naive and not interested too much in what's happening outside in the world. I remember very well my 17th birthday. I used to be a very pretty girl, I have to admit that. Blonde hair, and always smallish, not that small that I am now because I lost a lot, during the osteoporosis and this. But I just did not really care much about our life, And if I think now about it, I think it's not right. But this is the way how they raised us, how we lived. The grown-ups were talking, discussing things, but they did not include me and my sister, and we were already teenagers, but they didn't. They did not feel that we have to know these things, and it was a big mistake, because then, when the bad times came for us, it was a very big shock, So I always say that I was like, until the Holocaust, which affected it all lives, I was just dreaming, and I woke up in Auschwitz. And this waking up at that, that shock, before that even, and the only ghetto there, and it was too harsh. I don't know if had they told us more about the things, if they informed us, our parents, and would it have been less? But this is how it happened. So what else would you?
You were in Auschwitz. You survived, and where did you meet your husband?
I didn't hear.
Where did you meet your husband?
When did I get to?
Where did you meet your husband?
Oh, my husband. My husband I met before, in 42, before the Jewish men in Hungary were taken to forced labor camp, because they took them. The country was not occupied by the Nazis yet, but the Hungarians themselves, they were allies of the Germans, so they wanted to help them. So they took Jewish men to build airfields and roads and you name it, whatever. So we only knew each other maybe 4 months when he was taken. But it was, love. Love of not at first sight, second sight.
So you found each other after the war?
Yes, as you say, I survived and went back to Hungary because I didn't know if I have anybody from the family. I had to go back. And he survived 2 years in forced labor camp, and at the end in the ghetto in Budapest. So, my mother found him in a hospital, half dead, more dead than alive, after the liberation in Hungary. And she took him to that half apartment we had at that time after the war, and nursed him back to life, literally on corn, because there was nothing to eat there too, So anyway, and then after when I got back in 45, September the 15th only. So I had to stay in Bergen-Belsen months because there was no way to get back to Hungary. The British did not want to help. They didn't want us to go back to a communist country. you know, so I had to find some other way to be able. So it's only in September. And I got home on the 15th of September, 45. And on the 25th we had a wedding.
Wow.
A wedding where there hardly were 10 Jewish men for a minyan. Well, there were almost nobody because almost all the Jews from our city were wiped off. Our family, large extended family, my mother's sisters and mother and this and other children, everybody. Only my immediate family survived somehow. Each of them a different kind of a hell. So, and that wedding, I mean, we had nothing. Nobody had it. That few Jews who survived, they had nothing. So if I see now what kind of elaborate weddings here people make, I think myself back of our wedding. But it did not matter at that point.
Mm-hmm.
What mattered is that we survived. You know.
And then after that you moved to Israel?
After that we left Hungary in 46 in the spring. Because I said I can't stay there. My sister did not want to stay there. And no, none of us want to stay there. It was only my father who said that he was right. Because where did you go, he said. Where are you going? Israel was not Israel yet. My husband was a Zionist from age 16. You know, he was perfect in Hebrew and many, many languages also. But where do we go, he said. No, just we came back, we barely survived, and you take a rucksack on your back and you leave. Where are you going? But, you know, and I was already pregnant, you know, so he said that we are insane. And a little bit we were, I think, but we wanted to get out of there. We could not bear that atmosphere, the whole thing, you know. I met on the street some people. I mean, we were very well known, our family, because, you know, because my father had a store. My uncle was a very well known doctor there. The other sister had other stores. And they knew us. And there were people who knew me since I was that small. You know, people who were customers in my father's store came, you know, bought there and this. And I went on the street, I never forget that. Comes a woman, and she was not the bad one, from the bad one. And she tells me, because when I came back from Bergen-Belsen, I was blown up, literally. I never in my life been so plump, you know, because there, after liberation, after the starvation, one wanted just to eat. And in Bergen-Belsen, after the liberation, all the food we got every day, potato, soup and bread. Because in the kitchen, the kitchen Germans worked, German women, and they, you know, there was no food in Germany, so they took the good things, whatever was there, and they just, so I was like, and she told me, that woman, oh, it probably was not so bad for you out there. You never looked so good in your life. I can't tell you how I felt. You know, I just... So we left. We left with a half illegal transport, which with the Jewish agency took out from Hungary, the survivors who wanted to leave, and ended up in Germany in a camp, an United Nations refugee camp, you know. And that is where my son was born, in a German hospital. I didn't want him to be born in Hungary and then in a German hospital. Anyway, so after that we stayed there until my son was close to a year old, and then we could not stand it also there in Germany, you know. We still did not know when Israel gets independent. So we went over to France, illegally again, of course, everything illegally, and tried to live there for a while. We were so naive, and we thought that we can wait it out there until Israel gets independent. And after half a year, we could not stand. My husband was not able to find work. He was perfect in French also. But foreigners, especially at that time, and food was scarce, and we lived on the 5th floor in a cheap apartment building where we had to pay 3 times what the French people paid because we were foreigners, and they don't like foreigners, and they didn't like us, you know, Jewish. With a baby up there, and it was very hard. And then we made a stupid thing. We went back to Hungary in '47 to wait it out there. But it was already communist, of course. We knew that, but we didn't know how, you know, it was more and more difficult to get out of there, you know, because they didn't let people out. And then in '49 we fled again. Really, literally risking our life, you know, walking 20 kilometers at night from Hungary to Czechoslovakia over. And somehow, after a lot of not so pleasant experiences, we arrived in Israel in '49, September. And began a life from nothing, because we had nothing.
Is that where you became an artist in Israel?
Beg pardon?
Did you start working as an artist when you were in Israel?
It was not so simple, because we lived there in a village where at that time the conditions, I don't know how much you know about it, what was life at that time in Israel.
Where did you live?
We were 1 year in Haifa, in some slum shacks which were illegally built there, outskirts of the city. There was no housing when we got there. There was no housing, there was no food, there was no work, there was nothing. So it was not simple. And I did not immediately, you know, I had to go to work to make some money. I mean, because my husband in the beginning also was not able to get work. And I worked in a ceramic factory in Mifraz, Haifa, if you know where it is. You've been to Israel a couple of times, I'm sure, you know. Mifraz, Haifa was at that time an industrial area where they had factories. And there was a ceramic factory, I think the name was Kadar, if I remember well. And where I got some work as a painter, you know, on ceramic, before they fired it. I never did it before, but so, and I worked there a while, and not easy. Not easy, badly paid, freezing in the winter. It was in 1950. There was snow in Haifa also. My husband had to go on the roof and shovel the snow. Can you imagine? We didn't have warm clothes because they told us you don't need warm clothes in Israel, and you need a raincoat. Freezing, absolutely freezing. So anyway, that's a long story. So, and after that we lived in a village because there was no food in the city, and we had a small child. He was 3 years old when we got there. And so we went to a village, small village, which now is Kfar Chabad. At that time it was owned by Poel HaMizrahi. And I met somebody who we were together in Germany in the United Nations UNRWA camp. And she said, come to the village, there is everything. There is good milk, you can have your own chicken, you can have your own garden or vegetables, and this and this and this. And we made a big mistake, we went there because it was not for us. And we lived there 6 years. 5 years we did not have electricity. Very primitive. It used to be an Arab village, you know. And the joint took it over, you know, the Jewish how do you call it? Joint, you know.
The joint distribution committee.
Yeah. And they did some, I mean, the water pipes were outside. So you did not need a water heater in the summer, but in the winter, we had no water in the house, we had no toilet, nothing, very primitive Arab houses, where the Arabs either fled, you know, or whatever happened, I don't know, in the war. And we lived there 6 years, until in '56, there were a lot of infiltrators, Arab infiltrators in the country. And you know, if I talk to anyone who is not informed about what the situation was back, and when the Palestinians say that all the problems are because of the '67 war, they captured territories. They came to kill. At that time, there were no captured territories. The West Bank was there still in Jordanian hands, and you know. And then in '56, they came, they really murdered there, you know. It was a terrible, frightening experience. When I told my husband that I'm not staying there, it was very frightening. And when we were able to go over to Be'er Yaakov, which is another village, it's a very old settlement, you know, Jewish settlement, Be'er Yaakov. All this, like, you know, this village where we were, it was on the road from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem, after Beit Dagan, if you know that area. Inside 4 kilometers from the Krish Yerushalayim at that time. And the other, Beit Yaakov, was a little further, like maybe you know where the military hospital used to be, and Camp Strifin. They call it Sarafend also. I don't know what is now doing now, what is happening there now. And so Beit Yaakov was close to there. It's a little bit better village, more secure if anything, not so like this one where we were before. And then after 2 years we went over to Holland, because we discovered that our son was very talented in music. And the teacher was there who accepted him, and it was very difficult to travel at that times, that years, because the transportation and the buses and unbelievable conditions. You know, people don't know that nowadays. They don't know this. And so we were able to go over there, and then my husband was already a teacher, you know, in school, and very, very little income, very little. I worked 2 years in the beginning when we got to Israel. After that I became sick, ill all the time, had to stop. And I took up sculpting. I always wanted to. I was drawing since I was 7 years old, elementary school. They discovered that I have some talent, you know. But as far as sculpting, I only began it there in this village, which is, the name was Safaria at that time, beside the kerosene lamp. I began to, you know, I somehow got clay and began to model. And then I found out about a very excellent sculptor who came from Hungary, Romania, that area. His name is Mikhail Kara. He was quite famous that time in Israel. And I used to go to his studio. And he didn't have a studio. He was also very poor. But one room, you know, he used them. And I used to go there and work there, you know, but no stone carving or anything like that. You know, modeling, casting it in plaster, that's far I got. Because I didn't have money for bronze casting or anything.